For this tutorial, I'll be using the Patterns for Pirates Pirate Pencil Skirt. I'll link to it in the description box below so that you guys can get it and use it too. This pattern is drafted for knit fabric, but don't let that intimidate you. It's actually pretty easy. I'm using a zigzag stitch with a stitch length of 1.8 and a stitch width of 2.0, and my tension is set to 5.5. The first thing that I'm doing is ironing this out so that I don't get wrinkles and cut on funny lines. If you know how to sew, ignore this part. If you don't know how to sew, you'll need to pay attention to the grain line and the right side and the wrong side of the fabric. The right side will usually have lines, and you can see those when you stretch it, and that is your grain line. The right side looks more finished and the wrong side looks a little less finished. And the fabric also has a tendency to curl towards the right side. So you'll need to match the grain line on your fabric with your pattern piece where it says it needs to go. Then you'll need to cut your fabric out using your pattern. Luckily, there's only 3 pieces, so this doesn't actually take that long. Now that it's all cut out, you need to match your side seams. So lay one piece on top of the other, right sides together, so the wrong sides will be on the outside. If you get confused of which side is the top and which side is the bottom, there's this little curve for your hip that is the top part of your skirt. So you want to make sure that you pin it all down so it doesn't move while you're sewing. Your seam allowance on this pattern is 1/2 inch. If you don't know what a seam allowance is, it's just how far into the fabric that you sew. So you're going to leave 1/2 inch on the outside of your seam. Now that you've got it all pinned together, you need to sew the side seams. So make sure you get that 1/2 inch and your zigzag stitch. Now you need to do the waistband. And for the waistband, you're going to fold it in half long ways with right sides together, and you're going to sew the ends to make a circle. Once that circle is made, you'll want to fold it in half short sides and wrong sides together so that all the right sides are on the outside and the wrong sides are on the inside. Once you do that, you'll want to find quarter points. And the way you do that is you find the seam that you just made, and then you find the spot exactly opposite of it. And then once those 2 points are marked, then you'll match them up. Then you'll find the point between them on each side. Then you'll want to find the quarter points on the skirt as well. So take your skirt and you want to put the side seams together, and then you'll mark the center front and the center back of the skirt. And then once those are marked, you put those 2 markings together and then you find the point in the middle of those. For me, it happened to be that those points were actually my side seams, so I didn't have to mark them because the seam was easy enough for me to find. After you've got your waistband and your skirt marked, you'll need to slip the waistband into the skirt. And then you'll want to match up all those quarter points. After you get the quarter points of the waistband matched to the skirt, you will need to sew the waistband to the skirt. I recommend that you match the seam of the waistband with the center back of the skirt. That way you always know which side is the back of the skirt and which side is the front of the skirt. You want to backstitch at the start and the stop of this seam so that it doesn't come undone. If you're finding that your side seams are too bulky for you, you can trim those down, or you can zigzag again over the edge. And now the last step is to hem it. The hem allowance on this pattern is 1 inch, so I'm pressing it up 1 inch, and then I'm pinning it in place, and now I'm going to sew it down. I'm using the same settings to do the hem as I have the rest of the skirt. You may also use a twin needle, and if you use a twin needle, you cannot use a zigzag stitch. It will break your needle. Now that your skirt's done, if you look at the hem and there's a little bit of waving or bubbling, that's all right. Just take it back to the ironing board and press it down a little bit. It'll help the seam to not be as wavy. It still might keep some waving, but that is just fine. No one's really gonna notice. After I ironed my hem, I went back and I ironed the waistband just so it would sit a little more flat. I ironed the seam allowance down towards the skirt, not up towards the waistband. And now that you've made your skirt, you can wear it. You can dress it up, or you can make it more casual. The biggest things that I find that help me when I work with knit fabric is using ballpoint needles. These actually prevent your fabric from getting little holes and tears in them while you're sewing, because if you use a regular sewing needle, that's what's going to happen. Regular sewing machine needles will actually puncture your fabric. These actually separate the threads, so you won't get holes and tears with this one. The other thing that helps me a lot, and I can't recommend this enough, is a walking foot. A walking foot actually has little teeth on it, just kind of like your feed dogs are. It's like feed dogs on your foot. So it'll actually feed the fabric through on top and bottom at the same time. So you're getting an even seam all the way through, and you're not gonna get scrunching or waving or anything weird like that. Now, I do absolutely recommend that you get a walking foot. However, for this tutorial, I actually did just use a regular sewing machine foot just to show you guys that you can do it without a walking foot. You will get a little bit of wavy seams, but it is still doable. You'll just get a nicer seam with a walking foot. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know if you use this tutorial. I would love to see what you make. Okay, bye.